The Chaos Machine: Debt, Crisis, and the Unraveling of Global Order. Executive Summary: The United States has constructed a financial and geopolitical system that thrives on perpetual expansion through debt. Crises, whether financial, health-related, or military, serve as accelerants rather than accidents. This creates a self-reinforcing chaos machine that generates liquidity and optionality for the United States while imposing mounting costs on the rest of the world. As those costs become clearer, the global order is fragmenting through de-dollarization, deglobalization, and decentralization. Section 1. The core thesis: a structural phenomenon. The chaos machine is not primarily a conspiracy, but an emergent property of a fiat debt-based monetary system. Once the base layer of the economy shifted from tangible assets to government debt instruments, the logic of the system demanded continuous credit expansion. Crises provide the political and economic justification for that expansion, allowing the United States to act as both arsonist and firefighter, profiting from disorder on one hand and stabilization on the other. This creates unique optionality. The ability to issue the world's reserve currency and safe haven assets gives America lower borrowing costs and greater policy flexibility than any other nation. Section 2. Historical pivot: the end of the gold anchor. For most of the 19th and early 20th centuries, major economies tied their currencies to gold or other commodities. This imposed natural limits on credit creation. The 1971 Nixon shock severed the dollar's convertibility to gold, ushering in a pure fiat era. United States treasuries became the new foundational collateral for global finance. Today, United States public debt exceeds $38 trillion, with annual interest payments approaching or surpassing $1 trillion. Treasuries underpin trillions in derivatives, repo markets, and foreign reserves. The system is no longer backed by mined gold, but by the credibility and growth expectations of the United States government itself. Section 3. The operating mechanism: debt requires chaos or its equivalent. In a debt-based economy, new debt must continually service old debt plus interest. When organic growth slows, the system faces pressure. Crises solve this problem by enabling massive monetary expansion, also known as quantitative easing, deficit spending justified by emergency, rollover of maturing obligations at scale. Examples are consistent. The 2008 crisis led to trillions in Federal Reserve facilities and bailouts. The 2020 COVID response led to approximately a 40% surge in the money supply in roughly 2 years. Military engagements lead to sustained defense budget increases, with recent proposals approaching $1.5 trillion annually. The pattern is clear. Disruption creates the political will for expansion that steady-state conditions rarely allow. This content is brought to you by Bobby Giggs. Promote your brand here and reach a wide audience across platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Follow the links in the description to get started. Section 4. Credit misallocation and domestic distortions. Not all credit is equal. When new money flows primarily to government borrowing, it crowds out private investment. Financial speculation, it inflates asset prices such as housing and equities. Consumption rather than production, it weakens long-term productivity. Small businesses, which generate the majority of net new jobs, often receive less of this expanded credit. The result is asset bubbles that price out ordinary citizens while enriching intermediaries and asset owners. Government inefficiency and fraud, including large-scale examples in welfare and procurement, further embed spending inertia because the system benefits from the circulation of new dollars. Section 5. Global externalities: exporting instability. The chaos machine runs on American exceptionalism but exports volatility. Key mechanisms include the weaponization of the dollar and the SWIFT system for sanctions. A global military footprint of more than 750 overseas sites requiring constant funding. Control over critical choke points and infrastructure. Recent conflicts, such as the 2026 Strait of Hormuz disruptions, affecting 20 to 25% of global oil flows, illustrate how United States-driven events impose disproportionate costs on Asia and Europe. What looks like optionality domestically registers as fragility and coercion externally. Section 6. The Global Awakening and the 3 Ds: Nations are responding rationally to perceived systemic risks. Deglobalization, reshoring and regionalizing supply chains to avoid single point failures. De-dollarization, central banks accumulating gold at record pace, bilateral trade shifting away from the United States dollar. Dollar share of reserves has declined from approximately 70% peaks. Decentralization, creation of parallel infrastructure, Brazil's PIX, India's UPI, China's CIPS, Africa's PAPS, European alternatives, and competing artificial intelligence and compute stacks. These moves aim to eliminate uncontested hegemony, where one actor can weaponize critical systems such as finance, technology, and energy routes. Section 7. Implications for American primacy. Fragmentation poses direct threats to the United States. Reduced foreign demand for treasuries could raise borrowing costs. Erosion of the exorbitant privilege that subsidizes deficits. Increased competition in technology and payments. Potential acceleration of domestic debt dynamics if external buyers retreat. The irony is notable. Actions taken to sustain the machine may ultimately hasten its constraints. Section 8. Outlook. Adaptation or breakdown. The chaos machine has delivered decades of liquidity, innovation cycles, and geopolitical leverage. However, its reliance on externalized costs and perpetual expansion contains the seeds of its own challenges. Possible futures include reform, re-anchoring elements of the system toward productive credit and fiscal discipline. Manage fragmentation, a multipolar world with competing but functional blocks. Crisis amplification, escalating attempts to force expansion through larger disruptions. The unraveling of the post-Bretton Woods order is already underway. Whether it leads to a more resilient, decentralized global economy or heightened instability depends on how policymakers on all sides respond to the machine's increasingly visible mechanics. This framework offers a structural lens for understanding current geopolitics, capital flows, and technological competition, not as isolated events, but as symptoms of a debt-driven system reaching its logical limits.